Ambassador Ector's eye stalks twitched uncontrollably as he stared at the human reproductive diagram, his iridescent scales paling to a sickly hue. The Komar diplomat's mind reeled, unable to process the alien concept of human procreation. On the interstellar diplomatic station Harmony 7, orbiting Earth, this unexpected reaction threatened to derail crucial negotiations between humanity and the technologically advanced Komar species. Dr. Jordan Bailey, the human xenobiologist and diplomat assigned to the talks, had provided the educational materials on human physiology as a gesture of goodwill. Now that decision was spiraling into a potential interstellar incident. Harmony 7 buzzed with activity as humans and aliens alike prepared for the high-stakes meeting. The station's sleek corridors and advanced technology showcased humanity's rapid progress in space exploration and diplomacy. Earth's vast mineral resources hung in the balance, with the promise of Komar technology as the tantalizing prize. Ector had arrived earlier that day, his tall, gaunt form drawing curious glances from the human crew. Dr. Bailey had greeted the ambassador warmly, conducting a tour of the station's impressive facilities. The Komar's curiosity about human biology seemed innocent enough at the time, a natural interest in a species he had never closely interacted with before. As evening fell on the station's artificial day-night cycle, Ector retreated to his quarters to review the provided materials. His assistant, Zix, stood nearby, monitoring the ambassador's reactions. Suddenly, Ector's composure shattered. He leapt from his seat, pushing past Zix and bursting into the corridor. Alarms blared as Ector's erratic behavior triggered security protocols. Commander Marcus Holt, head of station security, mobilized his team to contain the situation. Dr. Bailey rushed to the scene, her mind racing to understand what could have caused such a dramatic reaction in the usually stoic Komar. Ector's incomprehensible ramblings about human reproduction echoed through the station's halls. In his panicked state, the ambassador's flailing limbs struck an emergency airlock panel. Klaxons wailed as a partial decompression threatened one of the station's modules. Quick-thinking human crew members sprang into action, averting a catastrophic failure by mere seconds. As security personnel finally managed to subdue and sedate the distressed ambassador, Dr. Bailey and Commander Holt exchanged worried glances. The incident had pushed the delicate diplomatic balance to its breaking point. Earth's access to Komar technology, vital for humanity's continued expansion into the stars, now hung by a thread. In the medical bay, Dr. Bailey studied the unconscious form of Ambassador Ector. His reactions suggested a deeper cultural or biological incompatibility between humans and Komar than anyone had anticipated. The xenobiologist's mind raced, searching for clues that might explain the alien's extreme response to human reproduction. Outside the solar system, the imposing silhouettes of Komar ships loomed. The alien fleet maintained a watchful presence, a reminder of the power imbalance between the two species. On Harmony 7, the crew braced for potential retaliation, their futures uncertain. As an urgent message to Earth's government beamed through subspace, requesting guidance on the unfolding crisis, Dr. Bailey knew that the fate of human-Komar relations rested in her hands. She had to unravel the mystery of Ector's reaction and find a way to salvage the negotiations before it was too late. The clock was ticking, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see if humanity's reach for the cosmos would be cut short by an alien ambassador's incomprehensible fear of human reproduction. Dr. Bailey's fingers flew across the holographic interface, urgently composing a detailed report of the incident. The soft blue glow illuminated her furrowed brow as she worked, the weight of Earth's future pressing down on her shoulders. Commander Holt paced behind her, his footsteps echoing in the cramped communications room. "Sending now," Bailey announced, her voice tight with tension. "Let's hope Earth understands the gravity of the situation." As if in response, the station's communication array hummed to life. A crisp, authoritative voice filled the room. "Harmony 7, this is Earth Command. We've received your report. A specialized team is en route to your location. ETA, 6 hours. Relief washed over Bailey's features, quickly replaced by new hope. She turned to Holt, who nodded grimly. "We need to keep Ector stable until they arrive," he said, already moving towards the door. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of activity. Medical staff monitored Ektor's vitals, security patrols doubled, and the station's diplomats worked tirelessly to reassure the rest of the alien delegations. Through it all, Bailey pored over every scrap of data on Komar biology, searching for answers. As the Earth shuttle docked with Harmony 7, Bailey and Holt stood at attention in the airlock. The door hissed open, revealing two figures, a tall, lanky man with piercing eyes and a compact woman with a commanding presence. Dr. Victor Reeves, the man introduced himself, extending a hand. And this is Colonel Sarah Chen. Chen nodded curtly, her eyes already scanning the corridor beyond. Brief us on the way to medical, she ordered. As they strode through the station, Bailey and Holt took turns explaining the situation. Reeves listened intently, occasionally interjecting with pointed questions about Komar physiology. Chen remained silent, her expression unreadable. In the medical bay, Reeves immediately set to work, his fingers dancing across holographic displays as he analyzed Ektor's data. The ambassador lay unconscious on a biobed, his iridescent scales dulled and his eye stalks twitching sporadically. Fascinating, Reeves murmured, zooming in on a neural scan. Look at these patterns in the thalamic region. It's consistent with a severe allergic response, but I've never seen anything quite like it. Bailey leaned in, her eyes widening as she processed the implications. You think this was caused by human pheromones? Reeves nodded, already calibrating a series of tests. It's a working theory. We'll need to isolate the specific compounds and develop a counteragent. As Reeves and Bailey delved deeper into their research, Chen turned to Holt. I need to establish contact with the Komar fleet, she said. Where's your most secure communication station? Holt led her to a heavily shielded room adjacent to the station's bridge. Chen wasted no time, her fingers flying over the controls as she composed a carefully worded message to the Komar ships lurking at the edge of the solar system. Minutes ticked by in tense silence before a response came through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Fleet Commander Zorn. His eye stalks swiveled aggressively as he spoke, his translator rendering his words in clipped, precise tones. You will return Ambassador Ektor immediately, Zorn demanded. Any delay will be considered an act of hostility. Chen remained impassive, her voice steady as she replied. Commander Zorn, I assure you that Ambassador Ektor is receiving the best possible care. We require 48 hours to stabilize his condition before transport can be safely attempted. Zorn's scales rippled in agitation, but Chen pressed on, her words a masterclass in diplomatic finesse. She emphasized Earth's commitment to peaceful relations, the shared benefits of cooperation, and the potential risks of moving Ektor prematurely. Finally, Zorn relented. 48 hours, he growled. Not 1 second more. The transmission cut off abruptly. As Chen emerged from the communication room, Bailey rushed up to her, excitement evident in her voice. We've found something, she said breathlessly. In the station's database, information about Komar reproduction. It's completely different from ours. They reproduce through a form of mitosis. Chen's eyes narrowed as she processed this information. That could explain Ektor's extreme reaction to human reproductive data. The concept of two sexes combining genetic material might be fundamentally disturbing to their psychology. Their conversation was interrupted by a security alert blaring through the station's speakers. Commander Holt's voice crackled over the comm system. All personnel, be advised, we're initiating a full security sweep. Report any suspicious activity immediately. As the sweep progressed, tension mounted. In Ektor's quarters, Lieutenant James Cooper, a sharp-eyed security officer, noticed an odd shimmer in the air near the ambassador's personal effects. Trusting his instincts, he ran a high-frequency scan of the area. Commander, Cooper called over his comm, I've found something. Some kind of cloaked device. Komar technology by the looks of it. Holt arrived moments later, his face grim as he examined the device. A data-gathering tool, he muttered. Sophisticated. We need to inform Chen and reassess Ektor's entire mission. In the medical bay, Dr. Reeves worked tirelessly, his face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. I think I've got it, he announced, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. a treatment to counteract the allergic reaction. It should stabilize his condition. As the treatment was administered, Hector's vitals began to stabilize. His eye stalks twitched, then focused as he regained consciousness. But instead of the calm demeanor they expected, Hector's eyes darted wildly around the room, his translator emitting a stream of incomprehensible sounds. Zix, Hector's assistant, was brought in to help calm him, but her presence seemed to agitate him further. In a burst of unexpected strength, Hector leapt from the biobed, pushing past the startled medical staff. Alarms blared as Hector raced through the station's corridors, his long limbs propelling him with surprising speed. Security personnel gave chase, but the ambassador's desperation lent him an uncanny ability to evade capture. In the chaos, Hector managed to reach the station's communication center. His fingers flew over the alien interface, attempting to send a message to the Komar fleet. Lieutenant Cooper, hot on his heels, lunged for the controls, managing to terminate the transmission, but not before a partial message had been sent. As security finally subdued Hector, Chen's face was grim. She knew she had no choice but to inform Fleet Commander Zorn of the situation. The response was immediate and alarming. The Komar fleet began to move closer to Earth, their ship's weapons systems powering up. Earth's defense forces went on high alert, the specter of interstellar conflict looming large. In the midst of this escalating crisis, Dr. Bailey made a crucial breakthrough. Poring over Komar cultural data, she uncovered a fundamental truth. Their entire society was built on a foundation of biological uniformity. "That's it," she breathed, her mind racing with the implications. The concept of genetic diversity, it's not just strange to them, it's threatening. It challenges their entire worldview. As Bailey shared her discovery with the team, a new approach began to take shape. Instead of trying to hide or downplay human genetic diversity, they would present it as a strength, a source of adaptability and resilience that had allowed humanity to thrive. With the 48-hour deadline looming, Earth's representatives prepared for a crucial meeting that would determine the fate of human-Komar relations. Dr. Bailey, now at the forefront of the diplomatic efforts, felt the weight of two species' futures on her shoulders as she rehearsed her presentation one final time. The station's main conference room had been carefully prepared, its holographic displays ready to showcase the wonders of human genetic diversity. As the doors slid open, admitting the still-shaken Hector and a holographic projection of Fleet Commander Zorn, Bailey took a deep breath. The next few hours would shape the course of interstellar history. History. Bailey squared her shoulders and stepped forward to address the assembled delegates. "Ambassador Hector, Fleet Commander Zorn, esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. "We stand at a crossroads of understanding between our species. The incident that brought us here was born of misunderstanding, but it offers us an opportunity to bridge the gap between our cultures." Bailey activated the holographic display, filling the room with a dazzling array of human genetic information. As she launched into her presentation on human diversity, she noticed Hector's eye stalks twitching with interest. Halfway through the presentation, Dr. Bailey paused, taking a deep breath before unveiling her bold proposal. "To fully grasp the nature of human reproduction, we believe a direct demonstration would be most effective." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Commander Holt's face reddened as he pulled Bailey aside. "Have you lost your mind?" he hissed. "This is too risky." "It's our best chance," Bailey whispered back. "We need to show them there's nothing to fear." After a heated debate, Holt reluctantly agreed, seeing no better alternatives. Bailey turned back to the stunned audience. "We have two volunteers who are willing to participate in this demonstration, Dr. Elena Kovacs and Major Thomas Reed." As if on cue, Kovacs and Reed entered the room. Kovacs, a tall woman with piercing green eyes, carried herself with quiet confidence. Reed, broad-shouldered and square-jawed, stood at attention, his military bearing evident. Hector's scales rippled with a mix of revulsion and curiosity. Zorn's holographic image flickered as he leaned forward, eye stalks swiveling to focus on the human volunteers. "This is highly irregular," Zorn's translator crackled. "However, we are intrigued by your proposal." As preparations for the demonstration began, Lieutenant Cooper burst into the room, his face flushed with urgency. "Commander," he said, addressing Holt, "we've made a discovery about the Comar device. It's not just for data gathering. It has advanced cloaking capabilities." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Cloaking? Are you saying there could be Comar spies on Earth?" Before Cooper could respond, another commotion interrupted them. Colonel Chen strode in, her face a mask of controlled tension. "Fleet Commander Zorn is requesting permission to board Harmony 7 with a delegation." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Chen's eyes swept the room, assessing potential threats. "I've agreed, but with strict security protocols in place." Hours later, Zorn arrived with two other Comar officials, Science Officer Nix and Security Chief Krell. Their elongated bodies seemed to glide across the floor as they entered the conference room, eye stalks swiveling to take in every detail. Dr. Bailey stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Welcome aboard Harmony 7, she said, forcing a smile. "If you'll follow me, we've prepared a secure medical bay for the demonstration." The group made their way through the station's corridors, an air of tense anticipation surrounding them. In the medical bay, Dr. Kovacs and Major Reed waited, both looking slightly nervous but determined. As the demonstration began, Bailey and Dr. Reeves provided a running commentary, explaining each stage of human reproduction in scientific detail. The Comar watched via a secure video feed, their expressions unreadable. Suddenly, Ector let out a strange warbling cry. His scales began to shift rapidly through a spectrum of colors, and his eye stalks emitted a soft, pulsating light. "What's happening?" Chen demanded, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Dr. Reeves rushed to scan Ector, his eyes widening as he interpreted the results. "It's some kind of biological process," he muttered, "unlike anything we've seen before." As the demonstration concluded, Ector's color stabilized. He turned to face the humans, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "You do not understand," Ector said, his voice tinged with desperation. "My people, we are dying. Our method of reproduction has led us to a genetic dead end. We cannot adapt, cannot fight off new diseases. My true mission here was to find a solution." The room fell silent as the implications of Ector's words sank in. Colonel Chen's mind raced, recognizing the strategic advantage this information provided. But before she could speak, Dr. Bailey stepped forward. "Ambassador Ector," she said softly, "why didn't you simply ask for our help?" Ector's eye stalks drooped. "We feared your reaction. Our species has always prided itself on uniformity. The concept of your genetic diversity was abhorrent to us. But now I see it may be our salvation." Commander Holt, still processing this new information, turned to Cooper. "Lieutenant, I want a full scan of this station using what we've learned about that Comar device." As Cooper hurried to comply, Dr. Bailey's mind whirred with possibilities. She turned to address both the human and Comar delegates. "I have a proposal," she announced. "A joint scientific mission, combining our knowledge of genetics with Comar biology. Together, we might find a way to save your species." Zorn and Ector exchanged glances, their eye stalks twitching in what Bailey had come to recognize as excitement. Even Chen looked intrigued by the possibility. Before anyone could respond, Cooper's voice crackled over the comm system. "Commander, we've detected a cloaked Comar ship attached to our hull. It seems to be the source of the device we found in Ector's quarters." The room erupted in chaos. Chen barked orders for increased security, while Zorn and Krell engaged in rapid, untranslated communication. Ector looked around wildly, clearly caught off guard by this revelation. In the midst of the commotion, Dr. Bailey raised her voice. "This doesn't change anything. We have an opportunity here to save a species, to forge a real alliance. We can work through these trust issues together." As the arguments raged on, a message from Earth Command appeared on the main screen. They had received a full report of the situation and were conditionally approving Bailey's proposal for a joint mission, provided the Comar agreed to full disclosure of their technology and intentions. Bailey looked around the room, seeing a mix of hope, suspicion, and uncertainty on both human and Comar faces. She knew that the real work was just beginning. Navigating the complex web of scientific collaboration, diplomatic negotiation, and lingering mistrust would be a monumental task. But as she watched Dr. Kovacs already deep in animated discussion with Science Officer Nix, and saw Major Reed cautiously exchanging what appeared to be military courtesies with Security Chief Krell, Bailey felt a spark of optimism. Perhaps this crisis, born of fear and misunderstanding, could truly be the beginning of something remarkable. The future of two species now hung in the balance, with the potential for either unprecedented cooperation or devastating conflict. As the teams began to form and plans started taking shape, Bailey couldn't help but wonder what new challenges and discoveries awaited them in this uncharted territory of interspecies collaboration. As the dust settled from the tumultuous revelations, Dr. Jordan Bailey found himself at the helm of a groundbreaking interspecies collaboration. The conference room, once a battleground of mistrust and suspicion, now buzzed with the energy of shared purpose. Dr. Kovacs, Major Reed, Bailey addressed the volunteers who had played such a pivotal role in the earlier demonstration. Your contributions have been invaluable. I'd like you both to join our research team full-time. Kovacs' eyes lit up with excitement. I'd be honored, Dr. Bailey. The potential here is staggering. Reed nodded, his military bearings softening slightly. I'm in. Someone needs to keep an eye on our new friends. Over the next few weeks, Bailey assembled a diverse team of experts. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned xenobiologist, arrived from Tokyo. Dr. Aisha Malik, a cultural anthropologist specializing in non-human societies, joined from the University of Cape Town. The team rounded out with specialists in genetics, biochemistry, and a host of other disciplines crucial to their monumental task. Harmony 7's layout transformed to accommodate the joint mission. The station's largest module became a state-of-the-art research facility filled with gleaming equipment and holographic interfaces. In one corner, a Komar scientist delicately manipulated a 3D model of their species' DNA structure, the elongated strands rotating slowly in the air. Ambassador Ector, his earlier erratic behavior now a fading memory, threw himself into the work with surprising vigor. His elongated fingers danced across a datapad as he shared centuries of accumulated Komar biological data with the human team. Our reproductive process has remained unchanged for millennia, Ector explained, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. We believe this uniformity to be our strength. Now, we see it may be our undoing. Dr. Kovacs leaned in, studying the intricate diagrams. Fascinating. Your genetic structure is incredibly stable, but that stability has become a weakness, Ector finished. We cannot adapt to new pathogens, cannot evolve to meet new challenges. As the days stretched into weeks, the research facility hummed with activity around the clock. Dr. Bailey often found himself working late into the night, poring over data streams and genetic models. It was during one such late-night session that a breakthrough finally came. Jordan! Elena Kovacs burst into his office, her usually neat hair disheveled from hours of work. We've found something, a set of human genes. They could be the key to introducing variability into the Komar genome. Bailey's exhaustion evaporated instantly. He followed Kovacs to her workstation, where a holographic display showed a complex web of genetic information. Are you certain? As certain as we can be without practical testing, Kovacs replied. But Jordan, the process of integration, it's incredibly complex, and the potential risks. Their excitement was tempered by the reality of the challenges ahead. Introducing new genetic material into a species that had known only uniformity for eons was a task fraught with danger. While the scientific team grappled with these challenges, tensions simmered beneath the surface of the fragile alliance. Commander Marcus Holt, his trust in the Komar still far from complete, implemented a web of security measures throughout the station. I want eyes and ears everywhere, Holt instructed Lieutenant James Cooper. If our friends so much as sneeze in a suspicious manner, I want to know about it. Cooper nodded, his young face set with drive. Understood, sir. I'll put together a team right away. The lieutenant's diligence paid off sooner than anyone expected. During a routine security sweep, Cooper's team discovered a hidden transmitter in Science Officer Nix's quarters. The device, no larger than a human thumb, was broadcasting encrypted data towards the Komar homeworld. The discovery sparked a firestorm of accusations and denials. In the main conference room, human and Komar officials faced off across the table, the atmosphere thick with mistrust. "This is a clear violation of our agreement," Commander Holt thundered, his face flushed with anger. Nix's eye stalks twitched rapidly, a sign of agitation. "We have a right to keep our people informed of our progress," the science officer countered. As voices raised and tempers flared, Dr. Bailey stepped between the two factions. "Enough!" he shouted, silencing the room. "This project is too important to fail over a lack of trust. I have a proposal." Bailey laid out his compromise. The Komar would be allowed to continue their transmissions, but under human supervision. In exchange, the human team would receive full access to all Komar genetic research data. After hours of tense negotiation, both sides grudgingly agreed to the terms. The crisis had been averted, but Bailey knew the real challenges were only beginning. As the research progressed, Dr. Kovacs made an unexpected discovery. The test samples, combinations of human and Komar genetic material, were exhibiting signs of sexual differentiation. In the sterile confines of the laboratory, Kovacs stared in wonder at the microscopic structures taking shape. "It's incredible," she murmured to Bailey. "We're seeing the emergence of distinct reproductive organs, something entirely new in Komar biology." The implications of this development sent shockwaves through the Komar scientific team. Hector, upon hearing the news, fell into a state of agitated confusion. "This cannot be," he insisted, his scales shifting rapidly through shades of blue and green. "Our society is built on uniformity. The concept of different sexes? It's unthinkable." As the Komar grappled with this paradigm-shifting discovery, another threat loomed on the horizon. Major Thomas Reed, working closely with the Komar security team, uncovered evidence of a radical faction within Komar society. This group, vehemently opposed to any alteration of Komar biology, had begun taking steps to sabotage the research efforts. Reed briefed Commander Holt and Dr. Bailey in a secure room, his voice low and urgent. "We've intercepted communications suggesting they have operatives on board Harmony 7. Their ultimate goal seems to be the complete termination of the project." Holt's mind focused. "We need to root them out immediately." Bailey held up a hand. "Carefully, Marcus. If we move too aggressively, we risk alienating our Komar allies. We need a subtle approach." Together, they devised a series of covert operations aimed at identifying and neutralizing the threat without alerting the main Komar fleet. Reed took charge of this delicate task, his military training now serving a far different purpose than he had ever anticipated. As if the situation weren't complex enough, Earth's government, growing increasingly nervous about the potential risks of the project, decided to send Colonel Sarah Chen back to Harmony 7. Her orders were clear: assess the situation and, if necessary, terminate the research. Chen's arrival added yet another layer of tension to the already volatile mix. Bailey found himself constantly mediating between factions, trying to keep the fragile alliance from fracturing under the weight of competing interests and fears. It was in this pressure cooker atmosphere that Bailey proposed his most audacious experiment yet: the creation of a hybrid human Komar embryo. The suggestion sent shockwaves through both human and Komar contingents. "Have you lost your mind?" Holt exploded when Bailey presented the idea. "The ethical implications alone." "It's our best chance to prove the viability of our work," Bailey argued. "A living proof of concept." As debates raged over the ethical and practical implications of Bailey's proposal, a startling development occurred. Ambassador Hector, the Komar who had first contacted humanity, began undergoing an unexpected physiological change. His body started exhibiting signs of sexual differentiation, mirroring the transformations seen in the laboratory samples. The Komar delegation was thrown into chaos. Some viewed Hector's transformation as a miracle, a sign of hope for their species' future. Others recoiled in horror, seeing it as an abomination that threatened the very foundations of their society. Amidst this turmoil, Dr. Jordan Bailey stood at a crossroads. The decision to proceed with the hybrid embryo experiment burdened immensely on him. He knew that his choice could either save the Komar species from extinction or ignite an interstellar conflict that would end all hope of cooperation. As Bailey prepared to announce his decision, he felt the weight of two civilizations on his shoulders. The eyes of Earth and the Komar homeworld were fixed on Harmony 7, waiting to see what the future would hold. The next few moments would shape the course of history for both species, for better or for worse. Dr. Jordan Bailey took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the faces of his team assembled in the research lab. The weight of his decision pressed heavily upon him, but he knew there was no turning back now. "We're proceeding with the hybrid embryo experiment," he announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Dr. Elena Kovacs stepped forward, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Are you certain, Jordan? The ethical implications?" "I know," Bailey cut her off gently, "but the potential to save an entire species outweighs the risks. We'll proceed with utmost caution." Over the next few days, Bailey assembled a specialized team. Dr. Kovacs would lead the genetic engineering aspects, while Major Thomas Reed would oversee security protocols. The lab buzzed with activity as they prepared for the groundbreaking procedure. As they worked, Ambassador Ector's transformation accelerated at an alarming rate. His once uniform body began developing distinctly male characteristics, a sight that sent shockwaves through the Komar delegation. "What's happening to me?" Ector's voice trembled as he examined his changing form in a reflective panel. Dr. Tanaka, the xenobiologist, ran a scanner over Ector's body. "Your genetic structure is rapidly adapting, Ambassador. It seems the introduction of human DNA has triggered a cascade of changes." The news of Ector's transformation spread quickly, causing a rift among the Komar. Science Officer Nix and a group of younger Komar viewed the changes with fascination and hope. However, a vocal faction, led by Elder Crix, saw it as an abomination. "This is a perversion of our very nature," Crix declared during a heated meeting. "We must cease this madness immediately." Meanwhile, in the secure lab, Dr. Bailey and his team carefully combined human and Komar genetic material. They worked tirelessly, selecting traits that could enhance Komar adaptability while preserving their unique biological characteristics. After days of painstaking work, Dr. Kovacs initiated the final sequence. The team watched with suspenseful pause as the hybrid embryo began to form in the artificial womb. "It's working," Kovacs whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "The cellular division is stable." Their elation was short-lived. Within hours, the embryo began exhibiting signs of rapid, uncontrolled growth. Alarms blared as the system struggled to contain the accelerating development. "We need to stabilize it," Bailey shouted over the chaos. "Prepare the stasis chamber." Major Reed and his security team rushed the specialized stasis unit into the lab. With seconds to spare, they transferred the hybrid embryo into the chamber, its swirling energies freezing the development in place. As the team caught their breath, Lieutenant James Cooper burst into the lab. "Dr. Bailey, we have a situation. News of the experiment has leaked. Both Earth and the Komar homeworld are in uproar." Before Bailey could respond, Colonel Sarah Chen strode into the room, her face a mask of cold willpower. "By order of Earth's government, I'm taking control of this project. All research is to cease immediately pending review." Chen implemented a series of strict protocols, effectively locking down the research facility. As tensions rose, the radical faction within Komar society saw their opportunity. In the dead of night, alarms blared throughout Harmony 7. Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're under attack. Komar extremists have breached the outer defenses." Chaos erupted as the station's security forces engaged the intruders. The corridors of Harmony 7 became a battlefield, with human and Komar alike caught in the crossfire. Dr. Bailey and his team worked frantically to secure their research data. In the lab, Major Reed organized a last line of defense around the stasis chamber containing the hybrid embryo. "We can't let them destroy it," Reed growled, his weapon at the ready. "This embryo might be the key to everything." As the battle raged, Ambassador Ector made a decision that would change the course of history. He strode into the station's main communication hub, his new form drawing shocked stares from both humans and Komar. "My fellow Komar," he began, his voice broadcasting to the station and beyond. I stand before you as living proof of our potential for change. We must embrace this opportunity for growth and adaptation. Our very survival depends on it. Hector's words sent shockwaves through Komar society. The battle on Harmony 7 reached a fever pitch as Komar fought Komar, those supporting change clashing with those resisting it. In a surprising turn of events, Fleet Commander Zorn's voice boomed over the communication channels. "This is Commander Zorn. I stand with Ambassador Hector. All loyal Komar forces are ordered to protect Harmony, HFY 7, and the human-Komar collaboration." The tide of battle turned as Zorn's loyalists joined forces with the station's security. Lieutenant Cooper led a daring counterattack, pushing the extremists back from the critical research areas. In the aftermath of the battle, Dr. Bailey made a startling discovery. Despite being in stasis, the hybrid embryo had continued to develop. Scans revealed a unique blend of human and Komar traits, far beyond anything they had anticipated. As the dust settled, Bailey found himself preparing for the most important presentation of his life. He would address a joint Earth-Komar Council, knowing that his words could shape the future of both species. In the quiet before the storm, Bailey noticed something unexpected. Dr. Kovacs and the transformed Ambassador Hector were deep in conversation, their body language suggesting a growing closeness that transcended mere professional collaboration. As Bailey finalized his notes, he realized that the hybrid embryo represented more than just a scientific breakthrough. It was a symbol of the potential for two vastly different species to come together, to create something entirely new. The implications were staggering, the possibilities endless. With a deep breath, Bailey stepped towards the council chamber. The future of human-Komar relations hung in the balance, and he knew his next words could alter the course of galactic history. The future of human-Komar relations hung in the balance, and he knew his next words could alter the course of galactic civilization. As Bailey approached the council chamber, an alarm blared through Harmony 7's corridors. Red warning lights flashed, bathing the station in an eerie glow. Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Bailey, we have a situation in Lab 7. The hybrid embryo is emitting strange energy signatures." Bailey's heart raced as he sprinted towards the lab, his presentation forgotten. He burst through the doors to find Dr. Kovacs hunched over a control panel, her fingers flying across the interface. "Elena, what's happening?" he asked, breathless. Kovacs looked up, her face pale. "The embryo's energy output has spiked exponentially. It's interfering with our systems." The stasis chamber hummed ominously, its usually calm blue glow now pulsing with an angry red. Bailey moved closer, peering through the reinforced glass. The embryo within had grown significantly, its form now clearly visible as a hybrid of human and Komar features. "We need to stabilize it," Bailey said, joining Kovacs at the controls. "If those energy signatures breach containment..." A violent tremor shook the station, cutting off his words. Lights flickered, and equipment crashed to the floor. In the chaos, Ambassador Hector stumbled into the lab, his newly masculinized form still alien to Bailey's eyes. "What's happening?" Hector demanded, his voice deeper than before. Before anyone could answer, another tremor rocked the station. The lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Emergency backup power kicked in moments later, casting everything in a dim red glow. "The embryo's energy output has overloaded our main power grid," Kovacs explained, her voice tight with tension. "We're running on auxiliaries." In the dimness, Bailey noticed Hector and Kovacs exchange a look of deep concern, and something else. There was an intimacy in their gaze that spoke of a connection beyond mere professional collaboration. A crash from the corridor outside snapped them back to the present crisis. Major Reed's voice boomed through the lab. "We've got hostiles on board. Komar extremists have breached our defenses." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the station. Reed appeared in the doorway, his uniform torn and a nasty gash across his forehead. "Dr. Bailey, we need to move the embryo. It's not safe here." Bailey hesitated, eyeing the pulsing stasis chamber. "Moving it could be catastrophic. The energy output is already unstable." Another explosion rocked the station. Reed gritted his teeth. "We don't have a choice. They're here to destroy it." With a heavy heart, Bailey nodded. All right, Elena, prep the containment unit. We'll have to risk a controlled release. As Kovacs worked feverishly to prepare the new containment system, Bailey and Reed secured the lab entrance. The sounds of battle grew closer, punctuated by the cries of injured crew members and the harsh bark of orders. Hector paced nervously, his new physique tensed for action. I should be out there, he said, clenching his fists. My people need to see that this is the path forward. Bailey placed a hand on Hector's shoulder. You're more valuable here, protecting our work. This embryo represents the future of both our species. A loud bang against the lab door made them all jump. Reed raised his weapon, aiming at the entrance. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Kovacs called out, Containment unit ready, initiating transfer now. The stasis chamber hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash of light filled the room. When it faded, Bailey blinked in astonishment at the sight before him. Where the embryo had been, a fully formed adult now stood. Its body was a perfect blend of human and Komar features, tall and lean like a Komar, but with distinctly human facial features and skin tones. Its eyes, however, were unlike anything Bailey had ever seen, swirling pools of energy that seemed to contain entire galaxies. The being spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the air vibrate. I am Nexus, it said, in perfect English and Komar simultaneously. I am the bridge between your species. Before anyone could react, the lab door exploded inward. Komar extremists poured through the opening, weapons raised. Reed opened fire, but Nexus raised a hand. A shimmering energy field sprang into existence, deflecting the extremists' attacks harmlessly away. With a gesture, Nexus lifted the attackers off their feet, suspending them in midair. Violence is not the answer, it said, its voice filled with compassion and authority. We must find a path forward together. The extremist weapons clattered to the floor as they stared in awe at the being before them. Nexus turned to Bailey, its galaxy eyes focusing on him with an intensity that made him shiver. Dr. Bailey, Nexus said, your work has given birth to a new era, but the journey ahead will require wisdom, courage, and unity from both humans and Komar. As if on cue, Colonel Chen burst into the lab, flanked by a contingent of Earth military personnel and Komar officials led by Fleet Commander Zorn. They froze at the sight of Nexus, weapons half raised in confusion. Bailey stepped forward, his mind racing to grasp the magnitude of what had just occurred. Colonel Chen, Commander Zorn, he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. I'd like to introduce you to Nexus. I believe we have a lot to discuss. Nexus nodded, a small smile playing across its alien features. Indeed we do, Dr. Bailey. Indeed we do. As the assembled group stared in wonder at the hybrid being, Bailey caught sight of Kovacs and Hector standing close together, their hands intertwined. In that moment, he realized that the birth of Nexus was just the beginning of a transformation that would reshape the galaxy in ways no one could have imagined. Predicted. The air in the lab crackled with tension and possibility. Admiral Marcus Graves strode into the room, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to the chaos around him. His eyes locked onto Nexus, narrowing with a mixture of awe and calculation. What in God's name is that? He demanded, gesturing at the hybrid being. Bailey stepped forward, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Admiral Graves, this is Nexus. It's the result of our human Komar hybridization project. Graves' eyes sharp. A sentient hybrid? Do you have any idea of the implications? Before Bailey could respond, Nexus spoke, its harmonious voice filling the room. Admiral, I understand your concerns. My existence raises many questions, but I assure you, I mean no harm to either humans or Komar. The Admiral's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm. And we're just supposed to take your word for it? Colonel Chen intervened, her voice sharp. Stand down, Admiral. This is still a scientific operation, not a military one. As the tension in the room mounted, Dr. Kovacs noticed something alarming on her monitors. Dr. Bailey, she called out, her voice tight with worry. Nexus's energy output is still increasing. I'm detecting molecular changes in the air around it. Bailey rushed to her side, studying the readouts with growing concern. The hybrid being was indeed affecting its surroundings, subtly altering the molecular structure of everything within a steadily expanding radius. Nexus, Bailey said, turning to the being. Are you aware of what you're doing to your environment? Nexus tilted its head, galaxy eyes swirling with curiosity. I am exploring, learning. My abilities are evolving rapidly, Dr. Bailey. I can sense the very fabric of reality around me. Admiral Graves' face darkened. This is exactly what I was afraid of. We have no idea of the extent of its powers or how to control them. It's not an it, Admiral, Dr. Kovacs interjected, her hands still intertwined with Ector's. Nexus is a sentient being. Graves' eyes flicked to their joined hands, his expression hardening further. And what exactly is going on here? Fraternization with an alien species? Ector stepped forward, his new masculine form towering over the Admiral. Our personal relationships are not your concern, Admiral. We should be focusing on the incredible scientific breakthrough before us. The tension in the room was palpable, but it was abruptly shattered by an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the intercom, strained and urgent. Dr. Bailey, we're receiving reports from the Komar homeworld. There's widespread unrest. Protests are breaking out across major cities, demanding access to the genetic modifications that Ambassador Ector underwent. Bailey exchanged a worried glance with Kovacs. The implications were staggering. The New Dawn movement, he muttered. It's happening faster than we anticipated. Admiral Graves seized on this new information. This is spiraling out of control. I'm placing this station under Earth military authority, effective immediately. You can't do that, Bailey protested. But Graves was already barking orders into his communicator, summoning his contingent of warships. Fleet Commander Zorn, who had been silently observing, finally spoke up. If you attempt to seize control of this station, Admiral, you will be met with resistance. My fleet stands ready to defend our joint interests. The situation was rapidly deteriorating. As human and Komar officials argued, Nexus stood in the center of the lab, its presence a silent reminder of the monumental changes occurring. Suddenly, Nexus gasped, its eyes widening. I can see, it said, voice filled with wonder. Beyond this station, beyond your worlds, there are others out there, so many others. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the hybrid being. What do you mean, Nexus? Bailey asked, his scientific curiosity overriding the chaos of the moment. Other species, Dr. Bailey. Civilizations we never knew existed. I can project my consciousness across vast distances. I can see them, communicate with them. Admiral Graves' face paled. Unknown alien species? This is a security nightmare. As the implications of this revelation sunk in, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Cooper's voice came over the intercom once more, this time tinged with panic. We're under attack. A group of Komar extremists has breached our defenses. They've deployed some kind of bioweapon. Chaos erupted in the lab. Admiral Graves began shouting orders, while Dr. Kovacs rushed to seal the room's ventilation system. In the midst of the pandemonium, Nexus stood perfectly still, its eyes closed in concentration. Suddenly, a shimmering field of energy expanded from Nexus, enveloping the entire station and the ships surrounding it. What are you doing? Bailey asked, watching in awe as the energy field stabilized. Nexus opened its eyes, meeting Bailey's gaze. I've created a containment field. The bioweapon cannot spread beyond Harmony 7, but we are now cut off from the outside world. The gravity of the situation settled over the room. They were trapped, facing an unknown biological threat, with tensions between humans and Komar at a breaking point. Bailey took a deep breath, his mind racing to find a solution. As he looked around the room, his eyes fell on Kovacs and Ector, still standing close despite the chaos. A spark of an idea formed in his mind. Their unique biology, a blend of human and transformed Komar genetics, might hold the key to counteracting the bioweapon. But the process of developing a cure would be incredibly risky, potentially fatal for both of them. As the alarms continued to blare, and the arguing resumed around him, Bailey found himself facing an impossible choice. The fate of everyone on Harmony 7, and perhaps the future of human-Komar relations, now rested in his hands. He looked at Nexus, then at Kovacs and Hector, his decision crystallizing. With a heavy heart, he stepped forward, ready to propose a plan that could save them all, or doom them entirely. Bailey took a deep breath, his decision weighing heavily on his conscience. Dr. Kovacs, Ambassador Hector, I believe your unique hybrid physiology may be the key to counteracting this bioweapon, but the process, it's incredibly risky. Kovacs and Hector exchanged a look, their intertwined hands tightening. We understand the risks, Dr. Bailey, Kovacs said, her voice steady. We're willing to do whatever it takes. As if on cue, Dr. Victor Reeves burst into the lab, his normally pristine lab coat splattered with blood. We need to move quickly. The bioweapon is spreading faster than we anticipated. Bailey nodded grimly. Prep the medical bay for an emergency procedure. We're going to attempt to synthesize a cure from their hybrid physiology. As Reeves and his team rushed to prepare, Nexus stepped forward, its galaxy eyes swirling with concern. I can help. I will create a protective field around the medical bay to keep out the bioweapon. The hybrid being closed its eyes in concentration, and a shimmering barrier of energy enveloped the medical bay. Almost immediately, Nexus staggered, its form flickering. Nexus, Bailey cried out, rushing to support the hybrid being. What's wrong? The larger containment field. I can't maintain both, Nexus gasped. The quarantine around Harmony 7 is failing. Admiral Graves' eyes gleamed with a mix of triumph and calculation. This changes everything. We need to take control of the situation now. Before anyone could react, Graves was barking orders into his communicator. All ships, prepare for potential assault on Harmony 7. We may need to neutralize the hybrid threat. Fleet Commander Zorn bristled, his tentacles writhing with anger. You go too far, Admiral. My ships will defend this station if necessary. As tension mounted in the lab, Major Reed stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. Dr. Bailey, you need to start that procedure now. I'll organize a team to hold off Graves's people. Bailey nodded, leading Kovacs and Hector towards the medical bay. As they passed through Nexus's protective field, the air crackled with energy. Inside, Dr. Reeves and his team worked with frantic efficiency, attaching sensors and preparing equipment. Kovacs and Hector lay on adjacent beds, their hands still clasped tightly. We're going to have to separate you for the procedure, Reeves said gently. Hector's new features tightened with worry. Elena. I'll be right here, Kovacs assured him, her voice strong despite the fear in her eyes. As the medical team began their work, alarms blared throughout the station. Outside the shimmering barrier, they could see flashes of weapons fire and hear the sounds of struggle. Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible over the din. Dr. Bailey, I've uncovered something. The bioweapon attack. It wasn't just Komar extremists. There's evidence of Earth military involvement. Admiral Graves. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving a stunned silence in the medical bay. My God, Bailey whispered, his mind blown from the implications. On the medical beds, Kovacs and Hector's vital signs began to fluctuate wildly. Reeves cursed under his breath, his hands moving in a blur over the equipment. We're losing them, he shouted. Their hybrid physiology is too unstable. Bailey's eyes darted between the failing patients and the weakening Nexus. In a moment of desperate inspiration, he made a decision that would change everything. Link their life support to Nexus, he ordered. Its regenerative abilities might be able to sustain them. As the connections were made, Nexus's eyes flew open, blazing with an intense light. Energy surged through the hybrid being, flowing into Kovacs and Hector. Suddenly, their vital signs stabilized, then strengthened. But something else was happening. The energy flow reversed, creating a feedback loop that amplified Nexus's powers exponentially. The hybrid being's form began to glow, pulsing with newfound energy. Its voice, when it spoke, seemed to come from everywhere at once. I see everything, Nexus intoned. The bioweapon, the deception, the impending conflict. I can stop it all. With a thought, Nexus expanded its influence throughout Harmony 7. The bioweapon simply ceased to exist, neutralized at the molecular level. In the space around the station, weapons systems on both human and Komar ships powered down simultaneously. A wave of telepathic energy washed over everyone on the station and nearby vessels. In an instant, they all knew the truth about Admiral Graves' false flag operation, about the true nature of the crisis, about the potential for peace between their species. In the corridors of Harmony 7, the fighting stopped as Graves' supporters, shocked by the revelation, laid down their arms. Major Reed and his team, a mix of humans and Komar, looked at each other with newfound respect and understanding. Back in the medical bay, Kovacs and Ektor opened their eyes, their bodies glowing faintly with residual energy from Nexus. The synthesis of the cure had been successful, and Dr. Reeves immediately began preparing doses for distribution. But even as one crisis ended, another loomed. Admiral Graves, exposed but still in command of significant forces, refused to stand down. His voice, tight with desperation, came over the station's comm system. "This ends now. I will not allow this abomination to continue. All ships prepare to fire on Harmony 7. If we can't control this technology, we'll destroy it." Bailey looked at Nexus, then at Kovacs and Ektor, who were slowly sitting up on their beds. "We need to stop him," he said, his voice filled with tenacity. "But how?" Nexus's eyes swirled with cosmic energy. "My enhanced abilities have granted me insights into both your species' potential futures. There may be a way to neutralize this threat without further bloodshed." As they began to strategize, the air around them crackled with possibility. The confrontation with Admiral Graves would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Komar relations, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The deafening roar of explosions rocked Harmony 7 as Admiral Graves's warships unleashed their assault. Alarms blared throughout the station, and emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie red glow. Dr. Bailey stumbled as another impact shook the floor beneath him. "Structural integrity compromised in sectors 3 through 7, Lieutenant Cooper's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible above the chaos. "Emergency containment protocols initiating." Bailey watched in horror as blast doors slammed shut, sealing off entire sections of the station. The agonized screams of those trapped in depressurizing compartments echoed through the halls before being abruptly silenced. Nexus's eyes flared with cosmic energy. "I can shield us," it said, its voice strained. A shimmering dome of energy expanded from the hybrid being, enveloping Harmony 7 in a protective cocoon. The bombardment continued, but the impacts now dissipated harmlessly against the energy field. Dr. Kovacs struggled to her feet, her face pale but determined. "We need to get to the control room," she said, supporting Ambassador Ektor. I think we can help." As they made their way through the damaged corridors, Bailey noticed the strange synchronicity between Kovacs and Ektor. They moved as one, their steps perfectly aligned, their breathing in unison. When they reached the control room, they approached the main console with eerie coordination. "We can feel the station," Ektor explained, his newly transformed features creased with concentration. "It's like an extension of ourselves." Their hands flew over the controls, bringing systems back online and rerouting power to critical areas. Slowly but surely, Harmony 7 began to stabilize. Outside, Major Reed led his team on a perilous spacewalk. They clung to the station's exterior, magnetic boots barely keeping them anchored as they worked to repair the weapons array. A piece of debris hurtled towards them, and Reed shouted a warning. Two of his team weren't fast enough. Their screams cut off as their comms went dead, their bodies drifting lifelessly into space. Reed gritted his teeth and pressed on. A nearby Komar soldier gave him a nod of respect, and together they tackled the delicate circuitry of the weapon system. On the bridge of his flagship, the QSS Harmony, Fleet Commander Zorn made a decision that would change the course of the battle. "All ships form defensive perimeter around Harmony 7, he ordered, his tentacles rippling with purpose. "Divert all power to forward shields." The Komar vessels moved into position, absorbing the brunt of Graves's assault. Inside Harmony 7, Nexus visibly relaxed as the strain on its energy field lessened. Dr. Bailey and Lieutenant Cooper huddled over a holographic display of Admiral Graves's flagship. If we can get aboard and expose Graves, we might be able to end this without further bloodshed, Cooper explained, outlining the infiltration plan. Bailey nodded grimly. I'll go with you, he said. My knowledge of Comar biology might come in handy. As they prepared to depart, Bailey approached Kovacs and Hector. The couple stood hand in hand, their skin glowing faintly with residual energy from their connection to Nexus. You two are the key to all of this, Bailey said softly. Whatever happens out there, keep working on stabilizing the station and supporting Nexus. The future of human-Comar relations may well depend on it. Kovacs squeezed his hand. Be careful out there, Marcus. The infiltration team boarded a modified shuttle, its hull shimmering with adaptive camouflage. As they approached Graves's flagship, Cooper expertly navigated through the debris field, avoiding detection. Something's wrong, Cooper muttered as they neared the ship's airlock. Security protocols are much tighter than our intel suggested. No sooner had he spoken than alarms blared across the flagship's hull. A squad of heavily armed soldiers in Earth military uniforms poured out of the airlock, weapons trained on the shuttle. It's a trap, Bailey shouted. They knew we were coming. Cooper's hands flew over the controls, narrowly avoiding a barrage of weapons fire. Hang on, he yelled as he executed a series of evasive maneuvers. Back on Harmony 7, Nexus suddenly convulsed, its form flickering dangerously. I sense something approaching, it gasped. A vast consciousness, unlike anything I've encountered before. Dr. Kovacs and Ambassador Hector shared a look of alarm. Through their connection to the station's systems, they could feel the massive energy surge detected at the edge of their sensors. We need to stabilize Nexus, Kovacs said urgently. If that field fails now, we're all dead. They worked frantically, channeling power from non-essential systems to support Nexus's energy matrix. As they did, Hector's eyes widened in realization. Elena, he said softly, I think I know how we can help Nexus, but it's risky. We might not survive. Kovacs met his gaze, understanding passing between them without words. They clasped hands, their bodies beginning to glow with an otherworldly light. As Bailey and Cooper's team fought for survival aboard their compromised shuttle, as Major Reed and his squad raced to bring Harmony 7's defenses online, as Fleet Commander Zorn's ship strained under the relentless assault of Graves's forces, a new variable entered the equation. The unknown alien fleet, drawn by the conflict, edged ever closer to the embattled solar system. The fate of two species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And in the heart of Harmony 7, two beings born of different worlds but united by love, prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice in the name of peace. The shuttle shuddered as another blast grazed its hull. Inside, Dr. Bailey gripped his seat, nucleus tightening. Lieutenant Cooper's face was a mask of concentration as he guided their vessel through a maelstrom of weapons fire. We need to dock, now, Cooper shouted over the din of alarms. I'm going to make a run for that maintenance airlock. Bailey nodded, steeling himself. As Cooper executed a series of dizzying maneuvers, the scientist fumbled with his pressure suit, double-checking seals. With a bone-jarring thud, the shuttle made contact with Admiral Graves's flagship. The airlock cycling seemed to take an eternity, each second bringing the possibility of detection. Finally, the inner doors slid open. Cooper took point, his weapon at the ready. The corridor beyond was dimly lit, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows. Stay close, Cooper whispered, leading the infiltration team deeper into the ship's bowels. They hadn't gone far when the first shout of alarm rang out. A squad of loyalists rounded the corner, weapons raised. Cooper reacted with lightning speed. His first shot caught the lead soldier square in the chest, dropping him instantly. In the confined space, the firefight was brutal and chaotic. Bailey pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding. He watched in awe as Cooper moved with fluid grace, each movement precise and deadly. The lieutenant dispatched 3 more opponents in rapid succession, creating an opening. Move, Cooper yelled, gesturing for the team to advance. As they pushed forward, Bailey's mind raced. He knew the layout of these ships, had studied the schematics extensively. An idea formed. Lieutenant, he called out, I can get us to the bridge faster. There's a maintenance shaft that bypasses most of the security checkpoints. Cooper nodded grimly. "Lead the way, Doctor." Bailey guided them to a nondescript panel, his fingers dancing over a hidden keypad. The wall slid open, revealing a narrow passageway. "It'll be tight," Bailey warned, "but it should get us there undetected." As they crawled through the claustrophobic space, Bailey's mind drifted to Harmony 7. He hoped Kovacs and Ector were managing to keep things under control. Back on the station, alarms blared as Nexus's energy field fluctuated wildly. Sections of the hull were exposed to the vacuum of space, emergency force fields flickering in and out of existence. Dr. Kovacs stumbled as another tremor shook the station. Beside her, Ector's newly transformed features were tight with concentration. "We're losing containment," Kovacs shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "Nexus can't maintain the field much longer." Ector's eyes met hers, a silent understanding passing between them. "The main power core," he said, his voice barely audible above the chaos. "If we can connect directly—" Kovacs nodded, already moving. They raced through the buckling corridors, their movements perfectly synchronized. Reaching the core, they found it pulsing with hardly restrained energy. Without hesitation, Kovacs reached out, placing her hand on the thrumming surface. Ector's hand covered hers, their fingers intertwining. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged through their bodies, every nerve ending alight with power. Kovacs gasped, her vision filled with swirling patterns of light and color. Through their connection to the station's systems, they could feel Nexus stabilizing. The hybrid being's energy field solidified, once again enveloping Harmony 7 in its protective embrace. But the strain on their bodies was immense. Kovacs felt as if she was being torn apart at the molecular level, only Ector's presence anchoring her to reality. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Graves paced like a caged animal. Reports of intruders flooded in from all sectors. "Lock down all critical systems," he barked, "and get me a secure channel to the fleet. If this station can't be controlled, it must be destroyed." A lieutenant approached, his face pale. "Sir, we're detecting an energy surge in Maintenance Shaft 3A. It's headed this way." Graves spun, drawing his sidearm. "Seal the bridge. No one gets in or out." The words had barely left his mouth when an explosion rocked the room. Through the smoke and debris, Cooper's team poured onto the bridge. The ensuing firefight was short but brutal. Cooper moved with practiced efficiency, his shots finding their marks with unerring accuracy. Bailey ducked and weaved, using consoles for cover. He spotted Graves making a dash for the main control panel. Without thinking, Bailey launched himself forward. He collided with the Admiral just as Graves's hand reached for a prominent red switch. They went down in a tangle of limbs, grappling desperately. Graves was the stronger man, but Bailey fought with the strength of desperation. "It's over, Graves," Bailey gasped, struggling to keep the Admiral pinned. "Your lies, your warmongering, it ends here." Cooper appeared, his weapon trained on Graves's head. "Stand down, Admiral. It's finished." With Graves secured, Cooper wasted no time. He accessed the ship's communication systems, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Lieutenant James Cooper of Harmony 7, his voice rang out across the fleet. "We have evidence of Admiral Graves's deception and warmongering. The attack on the Komar was a false flag operation, orchestrated to provoke conflict." As proof flooded the airwaves, the response was immediate. Ships from both Earth and Komar ceased fire, confusion and disbelief spreading through the ranks. On Harmony 7, Kovacs and Ector finally released their connection to the power core. They collapsed to the floor, their bodies racked with pain but their minds filled with a sense of accomplishment. As they struggled to remain conscious, they witnessed something extraordinary. Nexus, stabilized by their sacrifice, began to change. Its form shimmered, then split into two distinct entities. One appeared predominantly human, with flowing hair and eyes that shone with inner light. The other was unmistakably Komar, tentacles waving gently as if in an unseen current. The two beings turned as one, their gazes fixed on a point in space. A moment later, a fleet of ships unlike any ever seen materialized in the system. Kovacs and Ector watched in awe as the twin Nexus entities established contact with the new arrivals. The air hummed with unspoken communication. Across the system, on every ship and station, screens came to life. The image that appeared was of a being both familiar and utterly alien. "People of Earth and Komar," the being spoke, its voice resonating with ancient wisdom. "We are the progenitors. The conflict you have endured was the final test in a journey millennia in the making." As the progenitor explained the true nature of their shared history, a sense of wonder and possibility spread throughout the fleet. The revelation that humans and Komar were but two branches of a greater galactic family changed everything. On the bridge of Graves's flagship, Bailey and Cooper exchanged looks of amazement. Their small act of courage had set in motion events beyond their wildest imaginings. As the progenitor's message concluded, Bailey turned to Cooper. "I think," he said with a weary smile, "that we've got a lot of work ahead of us." Cooper nodded, holstering his weapon. "A new era of diplomacy and exploration. We'll need to get back to Harmony 7 and prepare for what comes next." As they made their way to the shuttle bay, Bailey's mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. The galaxy had just become a much larger, more wondrous place.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.